I can't believe that jerk Chris thinks I'm evil, Alex said as he and George walked home after school that afternoon. I can't believe you're calling Chris a jerk, George said. He was the first friend I made when I moved here. I never thought he could do something like this. I know what you mean, Alex agreed. Chris was always a really nice guy. Was he? George asked. What do you mean? Alex asked him. Maybe it was all an act, George said slowly. Maybe Chris was hiding his true identity, kind of like a comic book superhero who seems like a regular guy until he puts his cape on. You don't really believe Chris has been putting on an act all this time, do you? Alice asked. I don't know what to believe, George said. I'm just glad he thinks I only have a problem with regular gas. Can you imagine if he knew about the magical super burp? He'd put that in his comic book for sure. Then everyone would know. It's definitely a good thing we kept it a secret, Alice said. Yeah, George agreed. We're sort of like a club, the Secret Keepers Club. Alex smiled. Exactly, he said. He held up his hand. I swear that I will never tell your secrets and I will never be a jerk. George raised his hand in the air. Same here, he said. Then he got real quiet. Alex wasn't saying much either. George figured Alex was feeling the same way he was. They were both really, really mad at Chris, but it still seemed kind of strange walking home without him. You know what we need? Alex asked George. A new friend? George suggested. Alex shook his head. No, what we need is a clubhouse. Yeah, George smiled. That's a great idea. Every club needs a clubhouse. Where should ours be? Well, you have that shed in your backyard, Alex suggested. That would make a good clubhouse. No way, George said. My mom hasn't let me in the shed since I tried raising hamsters in there. She's still mad that one of them ate through her sweater. Yeah, that was pretty bad, Alex agreed. He thought for a moment. How about we build a clubhouse? We can make it somewhere else in your backyard. We don't have any wood or anything, George said. The only thing in my backyard right now is snow. We could build this clubhouse out of snow, Alex suggested, kind of like an igloo. Then, when the snow melts, we could get some wood and build a real clubhouse. That's a good idea, George agreed, and we don't even have to make a big clubhouse, Alice continued. After all, there are only two of us in the club. Yeah, George agreed, and that's just how it's gonna stay. Well, this isn't exactly a clubhouse, George said an hour later as he looked at the lumps of snow he and Alice had shoved together in his backyard. It's more like a snow fort, Alex said. Kind of. George shook his head. It doesn't look like any snow fort I've ever seen. Chris would have been able to build a real clubhouse out of snow, Alex admitted, and he probably would have made a few ice sculptures to decorate it. George knew that that was true. Chris made great ice sculptures. He was an amazing artist. An amazing artist who draws bad guys with giant gassy butts and huge heads. We don't need Chris, George told Alex. We can make this better all by ourselves. He picked up a big pile of snow and started forming it into the shape of a brick. Alex frowned. Can we work on it later? He asked. My hands are freezing. George's hands were ice cold too. So were his feet and his nose. Even his tonsils felt cold. Let's go inside and have some of my dad's famous double chocolate hot cocoa, George suggested. He just bought a huge bag of mini marshmallows. Yum, Alex exclaimed. Maybe while we're inside we can come up with a secret club handshake. Sure, George agreed. He tried wiggling his fingers inside his cold, wet gloves. As soon as I can move my hands again. So, what kind of things should we do in our club? Alice asked George a few minutes later as the boys sat in George's kitchen. George took a sip of his hot chocolate. I know one thing we're not doing, he said. We're not going to that stupid party Rodney is throwing for Chris this Saturday. Agreed, Alice said. We are boycotting. George gave him a funny look. What does being a boy have to do with anything? He asked. And why would you need a cot? You have a bed. Alex laughed. No, he said, boycotting. It means that we're not going because we're protesting what Chris did. Oh, that made more sense. You want to stand outside the store and protest? George asked. Like with signs and everything? Alex shook his head. I'm mad, but that would be too mean, he said. Like something an evil genius might do. And you don't want to be anything like that Dr. Alex character in the Toiletman comic, George agreed. Just like you don't want to be gassy all the time, Alice added. You can say that again, George said. He thought for a moment. I have an idea. Instead of going to the party, we could go see the scary movie marathon at Beaver Brook Movie Theater. I saw the poster last week. They're showing 5 freaky flicks all in a row. I can't afford to go to the movies this weekend, Alex said. I still have plenty of money left from when we were shoveling. Me too, George said. And since Louis paid for my pizza the other day, I even have enough for soda and popcorn. Perfect, Alice said. We're gonna have more fun than we could have had at that party. Much more, George agreed. He tried to sound like he meant it, but part of him wasn't so sure.